I'd like to talk about education for a second, and education where Kenya in particular is concerned. Now, President Kibaki introduced free primary education during his terms in office, and it resulted in a higher enrollment in primary school education. I think the focus should now move from the provision of free primary education, free secondary education, to quality tertiary education. The job market is open to those of us who have quality tertiary education. I personally believe that education is extremely important. It increases your level of discourse. It makes you think, sharper, outside the box, and just generally provide a higher level of opinion and decision making. And so for a leader to be educated is also important, but to have the provision of quality tertiary education, I think that's extremely important. We have, at this current point in time, we have a large percentage of our high school graduates who actually go abroad to study in the UK, in Australia, in the United States. You have to ask yourself, what do these countries have that attract our students to go there? And once they're out there, some of them don't come back. A large percentage don't come back. They find jobs out there. They settle down, out there, and they make their living out there. And there's no repatriation. There's no contribution to a society or a community that has, somehow contributed to their development from birth, because we're all born Kenyan here. So what can we do to match these standards? We can improve, and I believe, the quality of our tertiary education. I think that is quintessential to having a higher level of decision making and just generally, discourse. So that's my opinion.
Now, I noticed you pointed out the brain drain, which is quite a big phenomenon, especially in Africa. But surely education needs to go in hand with the creation of jobs. And this is one of the primary problems, is that we may even get an educated community, but who are leaving the country to find jobs that are at their level or that pay. Surely that should be a factor in consideration.
Now, education and job creation. When companies set up operations in any country, they're always looking for an educated population. So it's actually a cycle. You educate people, then they get jobs. You set companies, then they employ the people that are educated. So it goes round and round. It's actually a cycle that needs to be continued. So the government should also focus on establishing good education that will produce graduates and people who are educated and skilled enough to undertake a different management position and even undertake different operations in any company.
The words Lawrence just said are never more true, especially in today's world. Because as we're talking today, everything is going more and more high tech. Let me give you, for an example, a basic assembly line job. The point is, as costs go up and up, people are investing more in robots. For instance, to make a Porsche, you need a robot. To make an iPod in China, they use robots. Now, an uneducated person can't operate a robot. They can be taught how to do basic manual tasks with that robot, but if you maintain it, they can't do it. So, we do need education, even if you just want to build a basic manufacturing sector. Or agriculture, which the majority of Kenyans work in, is now getting more and more high tech. So you need basic education for that.
Now, I see you guys feel very strongly about this education, but then what about this teachers' strike that's going on? That should have ruffled many feathers. What do you guys have to say on that? What if the next government, the next leader, doesn't sort this out? Obviously, there's some grievances among the teachers and lecturers that they're not getting paid their worth. And surely education, being such a fundamental fact in the future of any country, needs to have some of the highest paid individuals. I mean, in all Japanese culture, the sensei was one of the most revered people in the country because they produced the future generations. Surely, what do you guys have to say about that? Teachers having it.
Teachers and salaries. Now, the Kenyan culture, I think it's a cycle. Near elections, the teachers strike, the nurses go on strike, maybe the policemen have a go slow, and maybe all the civil servants. Actually, it's a cycle that goes round and round. Now, the problem is that the government does not put emphasis in paying the civil servant as they are required or as they're supposed to. Yes, there's too much work for the individuals who work with the government, and actually they do an integral part of the country's duties. But there need to be a balance between the expenditure on the civil servant and expenditure on development. So it's actually a balance between the two. How much should you spare in paying the salaries, and how much should you spare in using in development? So it's a very hard statistic to balance, but there need to be a system whereby all the civil servants are paid at least at a level that is at par with the private individuals, which will make it even more harder to go on strike and go slow.
I think it's also important to point out the fact that for a long time the government has been downplaying the issue of paying the teachers. And we have seen the recent strike that was on. It was a deal that had been struck in almost more than a decade ago. That was in about 1996. So I think for us to have basic quality education, the teachers need to be equally motivated, because these are the people who are imparting knowledge to the students. Once you're not equally motivated, you cannot impart quality education, because at the end of the day, you just realize that it's just false promises that won't materialize at one point or another.
Can I just point out something here? While the teacher strike recently concluded, our MPs, the people who the civil service is supposed to take a lead from, concluded a deal where they would get 10 million, about 10 million, correct?
Yeah.
Around that.
10 million in benefits. And there are about 120 MPs in Kenya's cabinet. That's over $1 billion shillings. And at the same time, Robinson Githai, the finance minister, was telling us that there's a shortfall of about $1 billion to pay the wages. So what message are we sending the teachers?
And guys, just flow on to the next point.